All right, I think we are live. Welcome to This Is Your Mind on AI. If you caught the video that sent you here, you already know kind of why you're here. If not, we're going to introduce Nitwyt, which is using AI, not exactly in the way you think. I will talk more about that in just a little bit, but I want to get you caught up on kind of what I've been doing, especially those of you who have been part of this channel for a little bit of time. And I'm just going to jump right in by introducing you to the Nitwyt operating system. So we're going to go through, I'm going to show you kind of what I've built, why, and the one particular part that we're going to build out in it today, because the entire point of this channel is building live in public. So I'm going to do my best to continue that tradition. First and foremost, let me bring up Nitwyt here. Now I'm going to lighten her up a little bit. So let's lighten it up. There we go. Okay. So here's the basic idea. What I was looking for, this is many months ago, and this is, true story. This is because of my wife. She's like, all right, if you're so good at AI, then make me an organizer. And so that's kind of where this started, which is now, I expect to be a pretty good organizer, amongst other things, but we're going to talk more about that as we go through, because remember, we have 30 wins with this system. The first one I want to do is build out the interface, but first I want to explain kind of how it works and how it's a little bit different from an AI chatbot interface that you might be used to, even though it obviously uses AI, definitely. Now, what we're going to be doing here is there'll be an input, right? Someone's going to say, some input. This is kind of think about this like the HTML version. It's like the blueprint of how things work. And this is what we first created. So what I've been doing for the last few months is really just producing all the logic that is actually now all set up, that actually produced all of this, right? That coded all of this to this level. Now I've got my blueprint. So the way this works is I'm going to put in whatever your inputs are, right? Files, eventually whatever, MP3s, all that fun stuff, just like you would do with a regular Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever else you're using. Then you'll put in a little foresight preview here. What it'll do is it'll say, okay, based on the input, we're going to analyze it. We're going to go through a process, and then we're going to put it into the showroom. Now, the showroom for me is kind of like the front part of a factory. You can kind of see how these are named a little bit. Let me move my face out of the way here. So we can see we've got a little factory module. So what actually happens is the input goes through a factory process where the operating system's actually processing it from different perspectives to see everything that you're putting in there. How can it be helpful? How can your human intelligence, whatever we have here, be processed by artificial intelligence to create something through actual intelligence, which is the showroom. And then you can see the asset come through there. And that's kind of what it's telling us it's doing here. And this will all make more sense as we actually get this thing up and running. Right now, it's kind of like a toy because it's not actually going to work, but it's kind of going to work. So I can click adjust. Like, let's say if I wanted to change this, be like, no, I needed something else, right? It doesn't matter what you're typing here because it's just kind of for play. But when I type this in, it goes, okay, great. Then here's what we're going to do. Now we've got that. Are we good to proceed? Once I hit this, it's going to do its thing. Right, it would have processed, gone through the factory. You saw those kind of flip for a little bit. And all of a sudden it's sitting in the showroom where I can either archive it, or I can process it, push it forward into whatever the system is. Think about this might be a post, community post or some sort of update to the system or anything else that I want to kind of pulse out to the network that's there. So that's kind of how this little process works. Now, what I've done, what we are right now is the Nitwyt system has essentially created this as kind of like it's an HTML structure. You can see up here in the URL, runs local on my desktop, but it's an HTML structure that interacts with all my databases, which of course are also local. So what's happening here is not only is it going through kind of figuring out how can everything be organized, or what can be organized, what should be organized, and how can we adjust the logic and sort of improve the system, which is what the factory part is here. It actually goes through and updates the backpack, which would be kind of your on deck with your calendar, things like that. And it's broken down by the different things you want to kind of focus on. So I can kind of focus on this, that, or the other thing based on, if I'm going through the wealth node, things that are there to generate value, things that are there to signal and push out and say, let other people know, like, here's what we've done. For example, like if this was real, now again, this is based on real stuff, it just isn't quite interactive yet, but you can kind of see the direction we're going here because I've already done this. I did this, I did this, and I did this. This all happened this morning, at least as my current date and time. This is June 1st, by the way, 3:04 p.m. for those playing at home. And so anyway, we can go through and we can adjust all the different stuff, and as it's being updated, now I've got this middle part where I just kind of see what needs to be done. But there's also little things here where they've got files that can be processed. So I can click a button and then the AI would all of a sudden process it. I could work on whatever project I need. We mark it complete. It's done. AI updates itself. I'm off to the races. I don't have to stay in front of technology all day long. So that's kind of what we're building out. Now, that's a real 30,000 foot view of the overview of an operating system. This is not like your average kind of operating system that you might think about when it comes to AI, because it's built for AI. It's AI native. And that's what Nitwyt was all about. Nitwyt stands for not in the way you think. And this is an AI native operating system. So now, right now, it's an HTML file. Right now, it's kind of like a shell of itself. But it's a pretty good looking shell. It had, the basics are in there. I like the direction. Obviously, we're going to focus on a few things here or there. But the general idea is there, right? So now what we're going to do is we want to make this real. We've got the shell fully designed. Now I need the seed. I need to know what was the seed that actually created something like this, that made this happen. And that requires some pretty useful thinking. And that's where I don't really have that useful thinking, because I'm actually not really a developer. I'm barely a vibe coder. I do use VS Code, but I've also used Anti-Gravity and Cursor. For those of you that are into the vibe coding IDEs thing, I really just care that it's an IDE. But what I want to show you is how I'm using that IDE, because I kind of use it in a way where I don't have to be the one actually coding. AI is, and hear me out, because I understand everyone's going, well, AI codes anyway. I get it. But it does it in a slightly different way, not in the way you think, which is why I call it Nitwyt, right? So, okay, now I'm going to go through here and I'm going to pull up so I can show you Visual Studio Code. All right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pull up our folder here. Give me just a moment. So I'm going to open up my folder on my desktop so we can see it. And this is the best part about being live. Okay, this will work. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly get us reset just so I can show you a nice clean screen. I'm going to introduce you to the back end of all of this. All right, perfect. Here we go. I'm going to bring this over. And so I'm going to introduce very quickly here kind of what it looks like. So now we've got Visual Studio. Those of you familiar already might be already familiar with Visual Studio. This is just an IDE, right, where you've got your files and everything else. So we're not going to go into how to do all this. If you don't know how to use these tools, that's okay. You can still watch these live streams. It's perfectly fine. You don't actually, I'm kind of building out this entire system, to be honest, so that you don't have to do stuff like this. But right now, there's a lot of people that have to do stuff like using IDEs. So I want to show everybody a way to use an IDE to get to a point where maybe eventually we don't have to use them, or at least not in the way you think. Okay, so how is this organized? What I have is in the IDE, I've got the Nitwyt core files. I've got my digital backpack. You start to see there's the Ask Nitwyt. You see there's a factory. You see there's the showroom. And if we pop that over to where we just were, you can see there's the Ask Nitwyt. There's the digital backpack. There's the showroom. You can kind of see how these are organized, right? These little nodes are there. So how is this section kind of being thought through? How does it know to do all that sort of HTML? Well, what I'm doing, let me go ahead and pull this back. So in here, let's just pull up the digital backpack, for example. In the digital backpack, there's all these files that are here, these little leap.md files. And this actually has the information that HTML is pulling from. So here's the on-deck calendar. This is the actual digital backpack calendar where it's pulling, on-deck information. And in theory, when you click it in the HTML version, it would actually fill in here, right? That's kind of what we're trying to do. So I can see both versions because I want to see the front end version, but as somebody who's definitely going to be modifying this operating system, I also need to make sure there's the modification section where I can get back end as kind of the OS developer. And for those of you watching, if you know vibe coding, that's kind of what you're learning here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to show you how I'm developing it in a thing we call Nitwyt prompting, and I'll show you how that works. But this is why I'm doing it, because this is the back end of the system, kind of like getting into your Windows registry files. It's kind of the equivalent of that, nowhere near as complicated and so much easier to understand because it's an AI native. And so the AI is right there for you to kind of help you out. What's cool about this is that in this Nitwyt core section, this actually gets to learn who you are. And so it starts remembering the most important things about how you like certain things or words you definitely don't ever use. It understands not just what you think your customer is, but it understands about how you think about customers in general. And then it figures out who the customer is based upon who you think about customers, what the product is and everything else. There's an intense amount of logic that's in here. What does that logic look like? It kind of looks like stuff like this. So we have these little LEAP files. It's a very simple thing, by the way. LEAP stands for Logically Engineered AI Prompts. They have a certain structure to them. It's not important that you understand the structure. It's just important that you understand you can read this structure. And even if you don't quite know what all the words are or what they all mean, because obviously you didn't write this story, it tells me as the Nitwyt operator what the story of all the updates were for my Nitwyt operating system. That's, again, customizes itself. It's got this, it installs itself into, in this case, Visual Studio. And I use Klein. That's why you see Klein rules, and I'll show that in a second. It's just a good extension because I like keeping track of stuff. I'm open, by the way, for anybody that's got comments and other things to try. I'm all for it. And you'll see me evolve that as we go through anyway, I think, with these 30 wins in 30 days. But that's kind of a LEAP file. It's just a series of logical sections and prompts, and it's kind of containing the AI prompt in a file, right? Not just Markdown. It's not just Markdown. It's logically engineered AI prompt, which means there's an open and a closing statement, right? They're contained. That's an important thing. And I'm going to show you some different stuff as we go through. There's logic files. So when I go to update something, here's how we go through and we update everything. This is how we go through and learn how to update stuff. And the AI knows how to think through how it updates things. In my case, the calendar. Here is the win generator. So this is exactly what we're doing right now. The AI actually produced this earlier for me. So the only reason I'm here doing this is because I don't have to think about doing anything. And I'm going to show you why in just a moment. Because this entire thing has been thought out and processed, in this case, by the win generator coming through. So we've got the cycles. It's got its structure in there that it can use for other reasons as we go through. But what's cool about it, again, is it's customizing for me. If you were using Nitwyt OS, and you build one of these out, which of course you'll kind of learn from how to do that if you want to do that here. But if you want to build one of these out, yours would then customize to you, which is kind of neat, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and dive in and show you kind of the power of Nitwyt. I'm going to bring back, let me just go full screen here. I'm going to bring back Klein. All right, so we're going to start over. So start with a new chat. So I'm just popping in a new chat. I'm going to flip it into plan mode first. This is my personal favorite. I am going to be here, by the way, just kind of in the background. But I'm going to pop off because I want you to see. In fact, let me do this right here. You see these little price points. These are about. This is decent. These are probably 85% of what it actually costs. I think it's because of the reasoning that I turned up, and I'll show you some of these things in a second. But it is pretty useful to keep track of how much you're spending on stuff. All in for everything you've seen so far, I think I'm in a couple $100 total. Yeah, it's about right. Maybe a little less than that at this point. I'm happy to answer questions around that as well. But I'm going to keep track of tokens and looking at kind of what my costs are. That's another reason why I like this particular extension. Also, because you can switch models, so I can have the planning mode, and then I can have the act mode, and I can have that in there, and you can see the cost dramatically different. So I use planning mode. I put something with a little bit of heft. Act, I just kind of go to a lighter model because it really just, at that point, the thinking's been thought through. So the act just has to put stuff together, and that's kind of why I have it separated. So shout out to Klein. I happen to like it for those reasons. If there's other stuff out there, it's only because I don't know. So please feel free to put those in the comments, ask in the chat or whatever. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, in the HTML version, we have this little Ask Nitwyt feature. I need to get this up and running. In the Visual Studio feature, I use something called Beef Text, which is a text expander. It's a funny name, but it's pretty cool. This is kind of what it looks like. So it just kind of looks like this. It's a little thing. It's called Beef Text. It's perfect for Windows if you have Windows. But what it allows me to do is make things a whole lot simpler because I can do things like this. And now I've got my little Ask Nitwyt box. Now I'm going to try and zoom in here a little bit so I can make sure that you can see how useful this is. Okay, so right in here, I've got the open of the Ask Nitwyt, and right in here, I've got the close of the Ask Nitwyt. This is what I call Nitwyt prompting, right? It's prompting, just not in the way you think. It's not the normal style prompting, because almost everybody I know will delete this out and do some sort of paragraph or a couple sentences or start typing stuff, and that is a not as efficient use of tokens. Let's just say that. So instead, we're going to first frame it. We're going to give it a little shell. Oops, that's not what I wanted. We're going to do, what am I doing? Ask Nitwyt. There we go. Thought I cut it out. So there we go. So now we have Ask Nitwyt. So what we're doing here is at this point, I've got a container where now it knows which of those logic files it's going to go find because it's going to associate Ask Nitwyt with one of those logic files based upon how it's already been installed. It's already, and you saw that install leap already where the logic was already going to, you're going to actually see that logic get installed. Then you're going to see it kind of think for itself, almost like it's coming alive. It's not. It's just a program that's been programmed in a very certain way to do kind of whatever it needs to do within a certain constraint system, right? Within a certain common sense set of logic. So all I'm doing is I'm asking my system what the hell I'm supposed to do now because you all are here. So here's how I'm going to do that. And I kind of want to prove that you can just relax your way into this stuff now. It doesn't have to be as complicated, I think, as everybody makes things. It might be. I could be totally wrong. We'll find out. This is just the first win. All right, so I'm going to get my headset on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little type in here with Windows so I can get my voice in there. All right, here we go. And I do prefer voice, so just a little pro tip. All right, first thing I'm going to do is put a little hashtag in there. This is just helps me keep it. If I want to do bullet points, I like using hashtags for those. All right, so we're going to get this started. Hey, I am here right now, and we've got an audience that's sitting here. You know, we've got the viewer here. They're sitting here with the rest of the audience, and they're watching me. Now, what I've done so far, just so you know, we're in the middle of the live stream for what is essentially the 30 wins for 30 days, but we're doing that day one live stream that we had talked about. And at this point, I'm not sure if I want to show them the Nitwyt developing kit stuff, or I don't think we can show them the Nitwyt developing kit. They don't even know that's a thing right now because I just mentioned it. So instead of showing you how we're going to build that, I thought, why don't we kind of make that HTML part a little more real? Like that Ask Nitwyt part that's in the HTML section right now. I showed them that. I showed them the Foresight protocol. Let's do that with AI. Let's make that real because I like that blueprint. It seems like a decent structure. Is there some sort of bridge that we could do where I could still be using the IDE, in this case VS Code, at least for now, and bridge a script or something that can basically set so that whatever I put into that HTML field, which happens to be sitting there in the Ask Nitwyt, in the Nitwyt OS desktop portal, if I can go ahead and put that in there, and then you could do a bridge so that when it replies back, I actually see what the Foresight protocol really is. So it's not just a fake Foresight protocol, like kind of what is in there now, obviously, but it's been really critically well thought through, and it's the exact thing that we need based on what obviously that we need as Nitwyt operating system, because you are the thing that's building yourself, and I'm here more just exploring how you are being built by prompting you in this really weird way, which is very, very logical, but not in the way you think. All right, now, some of that was for you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask it, I don't have to do this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this yet. I will show you additional Nitwyt prompting, so we're gonna go a little bit further advanced. I'm gonna keep it simple, which would be, you could literally just talk stuff. I just call it riffing. I kind of call this freestyling, to be honest. Like that's kind of internally in my head. It's just a freestyle riff. I just kind of talk about whatever's in my head about the thing that I'm trying to figure out, and I frame it. And in this case, I know I'm asking Nitwyt to figure it out because I know there's logic files that'll do that. Let's see how we do. Now I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit to make sure that this is useful, especially as we start the main show when it starts building itself. All right, so it's going through its thinking. All right, there's where it's installing itself. So that's the Nitwyt install that we showed you earlier. Now it's going through its digital backpack. That's where the view is. So now it's looking at the view, that's the HTML file. Just found that. So now it's going through and it's thinking, and this is kind of what I like about this particular system. It's going through these logic files, and because the logic files are already very logical, probabilistically, they work already. And so the token spend isn't a ton. So far I've spent 13 cents. According to this, it's probably more like 15 or 16 cents. It's less than a quarter, I promise you that. So now I've got my plan all set out. Now, obviously the planning is one thing, and then there's the build, and the build can get kind of expensive too, depending upon what you're doing. So we're keeping it simple for now, but let's find out what we have to do. Now, again, I'm literally finding out what we have to do. I'm not trying to guide this to be like, oh, the answer is this. I'm learning. And I'm an example of why AI doesn't make people dumb. You use your human intelligence with artificial intelligence, and you use both of them together in a way that creates actual intelligence. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I actually understand stuff now. I understand stuff I should not be understanding right now. It just feels like I I would have had to go to college for like 50 years to understand the stuff that I know how to do right now. It's amazing. That said, let me show you how I've been doing that. And it's by doing stuff like this and letting essentially, in this case, Nitwyt tell me, or whatever I'm building, tell me what it is so I can explore it and sort of interact with it and learn about it. More like an anthropologist discovering some new species or somebody digging up something or whatever. I don't know. I'll learn about that stuff later. Right now, it's something like that. Okay, let's dive in. Agent in the loop, the file bridge. This is perfect. So we're going to bridge HTML. We're going to build a local server, which is what we have right now. That's what I was showing you in Chrome. That's the local server. Writes to a file. By the way, the reason this is cool is because this also relates to you, because I'm going to show you how you can get this for free and use it. Let's see, you tell me here in VS Code. I'm going to read the file, the foresight protocol, and the server sends it back to HTML. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to do the local server takes your HTML, automatically calls the LLM, like OpenAPI or Anthropic, which of course now it knows we have Gemini, or we'll make sure it has that. Also, by the way, we have installed local models before, which if you do local, this is unbelievable for local. Oh my gosh, it's a whole other deal with local. And FYI, we're going to be tackling local next week, but first we're going to build out the operating system this week. All right, so we're going to do this, primary manual, local LLM. If you're running something, local llama. So, which again, that's why I put that in there, by the way, because it kind of shows that this is really being intended to be run locally, because at that point you have, oh my God, dare I say it, data privacy. Ugh, I'm so irritated with people taking data all the time and selling it back, and just like every business model is somehow related to taking my data. People do not have to be the product anymore. We are way beyond that. So local AI helps dramatically with that. So that's the stuff I'm going to be showing you. But first things first, we got to make this part of it real. And I want to show you how you can start using it. So if you're into vibe coding and things like that, I'm going to put a GitHub repo up in just a little bit. So you will have access to that. In fact, I'm going to have Nitwyt basically do it. And so we'll put it here as well. And then you'll have the links. So you can actually take the files and play with it if you already know how to use this vibe coding platforms, right? Like IDEs. You have to know that, at least at this stage. This whole system gets easier and easier to use. And then what I'm trying to show everybody is how to make it easier and easier to use for more and more people day by day. So we'll be doing that, or in this case, probably week by week. All right, so here's our plan. So now what I'm gonna do, so it's basically asking me a question. So this is Klein jumping in. How do I want to operate during the stream? So here's what I want to do. And automated AI scripts with local LLM. So I'm going to do this. So here's what I'm going to do. I wrap now. What most people would do is this. Let me show you a way where if you accidentally see yourself prompting a regular way, that's not Nitwyt. And you got to think, like, am I prompting Nitwyt or not? That's how I'm doing it. If I'm prompting Nitwyt, what I'm about to do is start. It's going to look like I'm not prompting Nitwyt, but then I'm going to turn it into Nitwyt. I'll show you how. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly which direction to go. Agent loop, I see there's probably pros and cons. Automated AI scripts, probably pros and cons. Local LLMs, probably pros and cons. So I'm not exactly sure enough that I know enough about what's coming up to even make this decision. So at this point, I'm just deeply unsure. Why don't you just make that decision for me? And that way you can figure out kind of what the plan needs to be. And if you need to ask me more questions, you totally can. In theory, this would work-ish. You're going to get a decent response, mostly because it's been freestyled, because there's so much of that weird little content in there and it's gone for so long, which is why voice is much more helpful. However, a lot of tokens, because remember, when you're paying for AI, which I think of AI when I'm using tools like this, I think about every tool that I build like a machine that's using AI or tokens as electricity. And just like you would build a machine to be more energy efficient, you build AI machines to be more token efficient, right? So that's kind of, that way we're not wasting electricity, right? Literally, in that case, when it comes to all the electricity that used to produce the tokens. So in this case, everything I spend, when I put so many letters and words and everything else in here, that's all additional tokens that I have to go, that are going to Gemini, whatever else, for the AI to process. And when they come up with these really long-winded answers, is all the tokens that are used for that. So that's where the token bloat can come from. So what I want to do is I really want to kind of communicate this, but I want to do it in a way that's Nitwyt prompting style. So what I essentially said, and you can see that I was kind of looping a little bit, but that was on purpose, so I can kind of show you how to do this. So I said, well, I'm not exactly sure which direction to go, right? I can see, and that basically is to say option 1, 2, or 3. There was this agent in the loop option 1. There was this automated thing, 2, and then 3 or whatever. And it was like, how do you want to operate, right? I have no idea. So, and this is what I literally would do if I was just not, narrating as I go here with you here. But what I'm going to do is, I basically said, here's agent loop. That's 1, pros and cons. There's number 2, pros and cons. There's number 3, pros and cons, right? So you can start to see already a pattern. Not exactly sure what's going on, deeply unsure. Make the decision, make me, figure it out, right? All right. So how are we going to turn this into a Nitwyt prompt? I'm just going to make myself some space. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to ask Nitwyt. So I'm just going to do this because I can get that up there. So I'm going to frame it. Now, what I'm going to ask Nitwyt to do is to solve, okay? So I'm going to say, I need you to solve this. And I'm just going to add a little bracket since I popped that in there. And this is kind of where we're starting to nest our commands a little bit. Technically it is a command, but it's a shell for what's going to be in the middle. And what I need in the middle is for it to figure out what to solve, right? So now I've got, okay, ask Nitwyt solve. Then it's okay, I've got to get through these 3 options. So now I'm going to say, describe the situation, operator. And then I'm going to say unsure. All right, so now I have operator unsure. I'm just going to copy this. And I'm just going to paste it at the bottom there. And I'm going to close that, right? So think about seed in a shell. I'm making the shell, right, for my seed, which is what I really needed to do. And this is what the seed was all about, okay? So I'm just going to move this up here so we can see everything together. So there's my shell. I'm asking Nitwyt to solve. What am I asking it to solve? Operator is unsure. Okay, weird little logic, but this is why it's prompting, just not the way you think. So now I'm pasting all this in. Now, I don't have, if the whole thing was tokens and it was like, well, if he's spending less tokens, because you don't have to do a lot of characters, that's true. But then I just added a bunch more characters. Why would I do this again? And the answer is I wouldn't. The answer is, though, I needed to go through all these 3 things. I'm not quite sure exactly which one I should do, right? But why would I have to tell it that there was agent loop 1, pros and cons, automated pros and cons, and the LLM's pros and cons? It knows that it had 3 different options, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to emphasize not the different options, because it knows what the 3 different options are. I don't have to tell the AI. It just said, do you want option 1, 2, or 3? I don't have to identify the options. What I need to know is, that's why I just deleted that out. I need to know, I'm unsure, right? Because I do not have, actually, I'm going to do this. Keep it easy for you. Because you can nest these in one long line, but a little harder to read. So I'm going to say pros, right? Question mark. And then cons, question mark. And I'm just going to wrap that. So what I'm doing is just in a logical shorthand, I'm giving AI, because this works in any LLM. This is not just how you use a Nitwyt. This is how you use all AI. This works in any LLM, anything. Doesn't matter. Claude Code, this will work. So again, Nitwyt prompting, because it's prompting not in the way you think, but I just created the shell, right? And now I needed to solve everything that I was trying to figure out. So how do I put that? This is my favorite way, is I just ask the AI to solve it and say, I don't know what the answer is. Like, you figure it out. That's what that is. So now I'm asking Nitwyt to solve. Now that's going to fire off the logic files, which is all these are. These are just text logic files that cause it to domino into different logically engineered AI prompts that help give additional nuance when it needs it and pulls it out of the nuance when it doesn't, so it can focus on the right thing at the right time and really be a little more efficient with the tokens, where it's directing the tokens and how it's using them. So in this case, I'm having it figure out, I'm just unsure. I'm telling it the context, I'm unsure. I don't know the pros and cons of what? Obviously from the thing it just stopped and asked me for, right? So now I'm coming through here saying, okay, bring in Nitwyt and then ask it to figure out what's going on. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that's Nitwyt prompting. That's a fairly decent one. That's not, they can get just pretty simple, like I did with the first Ask Nitwyt one up here, right? It can do that, but you can nest them pretty well. I'll show you some other stuff too eventually as we go through this. And I'm going to plan to do this for probably another about a half hour or so, building live. I might go a little longer than that, depends. Or unless I finish, then I'll be done. Okay, so let's see what we got here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can also read. Actually, I won't. Let me do this. I'm going to make it easier for you to read. Try to make some space. Okay, so far we're almost 30 cents in probably. All right, so now I get to learn. And again, if you already know this, that's awesome. This is the point there is I get to learn this stuff and it helps me think about kind of where I'm going with it. So day one live stream, Nitwyt architecture, so agent loop. So we can spin up a lightweight local server. Okay. Hit the button, it drops a file, the HTML, UI host processing, and you switch over to VS Code and say process the drop. That seems like I would be manually doing that. But and I kind of already have demonstrated that. So I think that I'm not going to do that because that seems I'm just copying and pasting is what it feels like. That may not be true, but we're going to find out. And I really need API keys because I want you to see how to do this. So this is that one we know we're not going to do. Requires you to bounce between the browser VS Code. Yeah, I've already done that. So I think that's covered because we did that earlier. But at least it's thinking in the right direction. Automated AI scripts. Okay, local server takes your HTML input, immediately routes to an external LLM API. All right, pros. Seamless immediate response. That sounds good. Black box hides the building process from the audience. I removed from loop. Makes just another standard API wrapper. Great. Requires you to provide an API key in the .env, which I will mess on the live stream and then probably kill immediately after the live stream, just in case it gets out there. And then similar to number 2, but routes to local Llama 3 model. Now, I am ultimately going to be doing something like that. I just don't have that installed yet on the machine that I want to do it on. So I'm not going to do that one, which makes this really easy for me. And this is kind of what I like thinking like the obvious solution. In this case, it's the automated AI script. It has to be that. Because the other ones are just, there's reasons to not do them that are stronger than reasons to do them. And this one is kind of just set up for me. So it's going to be option number 2. So I'm going to know that. And I'm not going to do this one. This one would have made sense had I not already shown you how it works, which is, oh, here's Ask Nitwyt. And I didn't think it was going to expect me to do that. So that was good because option 1 is the most authentic. It's how we're actually turning the IDE into it. But I'm going to do option 2, which is now you've seen that. Let's try to make it for real. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and give it some operator input. And then what I'm going to do is, let me think. Let me think I want to put this in. So, and this is important because this is the whole point of this is you're processing your own logic. You're aware of how you're thinking. So you can code it in a way that's as short and as sweet as possible. So you can give it to the AI where it has just enough to know where the edges are, but that's it. And then can bounce around between anything. And you're not accidentally constricting the machine from what it needs to do. So here's what we're going to do. Operator. I'm going to do this. So I'm going to call it a little override. Actually, nope. I'm going to call it an update. Because I want it to know I've already done this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say option agent in, and I don't have to say agent in loop or spell it out. I could do it simply. There's lots of ways to do it, but I'm just going to go through it here. It's kind of the fun part about AI. There's no really exactly right way to do it. You just kind of get mostly it right, and it'll figure out the rest. So agent in loop, already done. Demonstrated earlier. And then option 2, whatever that was called. All right. Okay, so I'm going to say operator data next step, and that's kind of it. So now we're going to add that to the plan. That should tweak it. So instead of trying to build that direction, it's going to go the API direction. And then I am going to work on, I may or may not show this VS Code as we go through, depending on where the API stuff is. So forgive me for that. And if you are here live and you see the API keys, please be kind and gentle. Don't burn my APIs because I'm trying. Otherwise, I'll have to take it all back down. Actually, I'll just kill the API codes. Come on. Okay. So let's see if we got everything. We're still thinking. Sorry, I'm just making sure I can grab it all here. There we go. Okay. So understood. Agent loops already demonstrated. Option 2 is perfect. Overview. So we're going to do node.js. Act as API bridge. That's perfect. So we'll see for now. I'm sure eventually we're going to have a little Python script or something coming through, but What I like about this is it's going to do it in bits and pieces for me. And that's what I need, because I don't want it to leap too far ahead and do something that a developer would do because it knows how a developer thinks. Because if I don't know how a developer thinks and it just builds something, I don't know what just happened. So I don't know how to hook it in from my perspective and what my vision is for this or how to ask for it. So I personally, even though this feels painstaking, I like doing this particular way because once I got the logic down, it's mine forever and I never have to repeat the process. So this feels like, man, you're going really slow. You could just do this, this, and this. I totally get it. It's just not the very best way. You move one step at a time and you make sure that it's such a solid step that you would never have to check again. And then you really start trusting your logic and you can ask the machine to do more and more and more, as you will see as we go through these other wins here. Okay, so for now, let me go through. We're going to do the 4-step protocol. So this is going to change. It's going to create a little JavaScript there. It's going to give us a little example there, which is great in our hidden monitor, which is what I want to do. Then there's the desktop. So this is great. It's thinking about that. Initializing the package, building the server. We're going to see how that goes. There's some credentials. There's our HTML. And we're going to use Gemini. So as we go through, perfect. All right. So what I'm going to do is I will tell it actually, who cares? I'm not. This stuff is not. I was going to correct this and say, oh no, it's going to be Gemini. But at this stage, and this is just kind of from a Nitwyt development perspective, what I've learned about this working with AI is, yes, I could correct this detail now because it needs to know Gemini. And I just wanted to say Gemini, not remind everybody else in the world, because it doesn't matter. And mostly this is Klein trying to get that done. But it's not important. It knows that yet. All I'm doing in my head is translating that to whatever the AI is, right? I'll correct that part, or I'll not correct it, but I'll fill in the blanks later. But right now it's like, oh, like an AI. I'm like, yeah, like an AI key, whatever. So I'm not going to correct that now and go down the rabbit hole. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip this to act and let it do its thing. So at this point, what I would expect would happen is we're going to start seeing it do some code as it goes through. So we've got our terminal. I'll bring this over so you can kind of see things happen. We will see things that start to expand over here probably as we go through. And so now at this point, the operating system, Nitwyt itself, is essentially programming itself. It's updating itself. It's analyzing itself. And it's building out the things that I need it to build out so that I can get it connected and interact with it through HTML portals, my local Nitwyt portal, as opposed to this portal as an IDE, which is super useful. I've been using an IDE now for, I want to say, probably almost 30 days now. And it's really useful. It's because it can update things and everything else. However, I want to automate the whole thing, right? And not have to come back into the IDE. Where the IDE is incredibly useful, though, when it comes to Nitwyt operating systems, is that's where you develop your logic, or you can. So you can get back into it through an IDE platform and interact with it and manually adjust whatever you needed, especially if like a small business or corporate or enterprise or anything like that. All right, so let's just see how we're doing. Still thinking, and this does go on for a little bit. Again, I'm just looking at the cost, so we haven't even hit 50 cents yet. And we'll see where this goes. I also have no idea if this is going to work. It's kind of the beauty of this. I know I'll figure it out, so if it doesn't work live, it doesn't matter to me because I'll just do it offline and then show you what happened. But this is how it is. Like, I'm doing this in real time. And a lot of what I do is the offline thinking where I'm not in front of a computer, which is an amazing experience, not being in front of a screen for almost most of your day. And just being able to ponder and think because you're in your environment, just hanging out, and you have quietness. You can just be the best version of yourself and whatever the logic is. That goes into, I'll do a lot of recordings on my phone, and I will record out those thoughts about whatever I'm trying to build or why or how or trying to connect the dots. And then that stuff is what goes into the Ask Nitwyt process. And I basically ask it to create whatever I'm looking for. And then we go through the planning process, which you just saw happen. I flip it to act. And then, it's 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it needs to be. We probably will not have time to do all the stuff I want to do today within the hour, but that's okay. Because I'm going to basically updating the GitHubs after this. I'm going to update the NDK after this, which is the Nitwyt developing kit. Which is kind of a runtime version, because I'm going to have a free version that's available for you on GitHub. If you want to use that, you totally can. It'll have the Leap files in there. So you can play with it and you can install it into your own IDE. It'll be a generic version of a Nitwyt operating system you can kind of play with. But you would manually need to build it, right? Just like I'm doing now. And then I have the Nitwyt developing kit and the NDK, right? Or the Nitwyt developing kit. That I'm going to sell for $500. But that's going to be basically a runtime edition. So if you don't want to have to manually do everything, you just get the NDK. That'll give you a license to a Nitwyt. It'll be a licensed Nitwyt at that point. And then you're on the network. So you'd be able to have updates and everything else. And as Nitwyt gets easier to operate, you basically get the version of the software that you won't have to have an IDE for. But if you know how to use an IDE or something like it, you can still go through and edit those files in Nitwyt, which is kind of cool. So it makes it compatible to kind of no matter what AI-oriented technology you're comfortable using, or just the text editor if you want, if that works. All right, so we have all of that. We can see it's building out the desktop. So and this is where it was just organizing the HTML for that. Now it's doing some coding. Where are we at? 40 cents. So again, maybe that's at 50 cents now total so far. And I have talked to some other developers that have learned some of this Leap stuff that I was teaching earlier, just kind of a one-on-one trainings, things like that, which I'm open to as well. If you need help with that, just let me know. More importantly, join automatedwith.tech because that's where I'm looking. That's where I am. So if you want to practice some stuff there, automatedwith.tech is the website, and you can just join there for free. And then it's kind of the back, call it the This Is Your Mind on AI backstage area, but you can join that part for free. And you can see I've already posted something back there. And then every day that I'm doing these wins, I also post kind of a recap of the day. And that will have all the links. So if you miss one of these live for whatever reason, you can always come back, watch the recording and get it through there. But I'll also have them on YouTube. So, and then I'm open to ideas and suggestions. So as you have those, let me know in the comments. That'd be cool because I want to keep these going for 30 days. And it should be a ton of fun. And I'm going to need some stuff to talk about anyway. So if anybody's got questions on anything, we can also do that, especially as more people. This is literally something I did just kind of on Saturday. I think this whole thing came together and I was like, ooh, I know what I'm going to do. June 1st is right around the corner and we're doing 30 days. First 30 days in June, I'm going to show you all Nitwyt. And the way I'm going to show it to you is hopefully actually being able to use it. And I'm going to start with the version just as a really cool idea, which is what it was. You know, it's an HTML. It's a cool idea. But I'm looking for it to be, it feels like Pinocchio. It's like, oh, I have this puppet. I want it to be like, oh, I want to be able to make it real. And that's kind of what the HTML version is I make it kind of this digital puppet of the thing that I really want it to be. And then when I get the basics down, I kind of got like, oh, it's got the bones. Then I'm like, cool, let's get AI involved and build it out and make it real. And then we'll go from there. Because what I'm doing here is I'm engineering in the back end of Nitwyt, kind of like in like where the mechanic would go of your car. That's kind of what this is, right? You're like, I'm the mechanic for Nitwyt, and I'm in the back end, and I'm building out the front end of Nitwyt, right? I'm building out this part, of Nitwyt, and we're changing how the functions work. So because we're changing the function of this part, so it actually does function, hopefully, well, we'll see. I needed to get into the back-end engineering of it, this section, this part that I'm showing now, in order to make that part better, right, in order to function. So with any luck, that's going to happen. And you can see for the most part, I let this go. That doesn't mean I'm doing it all right. I know I'm going to learn lessons in security and everything else. Again, let's just try to, I'm not trying to be an example of like, this is exactly how you do it. I'm trying to do the best I can. On here, but I have absolutely learned my how to easily share API keys everywhere already. So I'm trying to keep that one to a minimum. So we'll see how that goes. But this is kind of what I like about this. There we go. We're done. Perfect. Okay, here we go. So now we're finished. Okay, let's dive in here. So I'm going to read this fully implemented, ready for ignition, robust node. Let's go see digital backpack. Okay, front is now fully wired. Replaced the hardcoded preview logic with the real fetch to the local bridge. We added the consulting kernel. There's the UI. There's the proceed. There's envelope.example. All right, so first things, here's how to launch on the live stream. Okay, so we're going to secure the key. File key that, open API, which I'm not going to do. Okay. This is probably where I should have told it. See, I'm not using API, but that's all right. Actually, you know what? That's not. I'm gonna correct it now because I'm gonna not have to. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to keep doing that over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to say, so I'm just kind of reviewing it. That's all I'm doing. And I know it's like, oh, it would be able to figure that out. Yes. But on its way to trying to figure that out, it figured out a million other things that it wasn't. And that's what diffuses the power. So I'm just telling it, hey, I'm reviewing. I'm the operator. I'm reviewing this. So Gemini API key only. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Nitwyt here to update if it needs to be updated, because it may or may not need it to update a file, because I don't want to have to replace something that says OpenAI with Gemini. I want it to do that so that I can kind of go into it and just plug in what I need to plug into. Let's see, ask Nitwyt. So basically I'm framing it saying, I want you to go ahead and update this based on my review. Here is my review. We only have this. So it should automatically know, oh, that means I have to take all this stuff out. In other words, I don't have to say, oh, I need you to go take out all the OpenAI stuff and everything else. It should figure that out. As we do this, let me pull this over so you can see it thinking. While it does that, I'm just going to clean up so we can keep our focus on that. So now we're going to have to change some things, which is fine. So we're going to update the bridge. Okay, so we'll see how this goes. Again, sometimes this stuff works, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, it's not a problem. It's just, this is how it goes. And I'll continue on some other way, but it'll be way like this. And this is a lesson learned. Now that it was doing OpenAI, I know now immediately when you see that, just correct it and be like, no, this is what I'm using. Though ultimately it's going to be open for anything. So I'm going to come back and change it and be like, it's any AI. But for now, I'm just going to hard code Gemini in there since we're getting this thing up. These models are already old, so it's gonna choke on that. So I'm gonna change some of this stuff. And I know this just because I've already done this stuff before. So this is why I've done this in bits and pieces, just never for this particular build of Nitwyt OS. I've just done it in other parts and pieces of the things I use to figure out how to build Nitwyt OS. So that's how I know that this is not going to work. But that's okay, because this is humans learning, right? My actual intelligence is improved around these models. And then okay, so I'm going to do one other thing. So now what I'm going to say is defend. And I like using this. Now, don't get caught up in commands like, oh, he always says defend. I mean, I just have my favorite things to do. You will have yours as well. It doesn't, I'm just kind of getting the logic. What I'm doing is I'm asking it to defend why the Gemini 1-point flash, right? So I'm going to say Gemini models. So, and then what I'm going to say here is defend Gemini. Actually, I'm going to do this because this will be an easier way for you to see it, or a different way for you to see it. So I'm going to do, blow this up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to defend. I'm asking it to defend Gemini, which is what it was doing there, specifically the models, right? And then what I'm putting is old. I think they're old, right? So, and then I just close it off. So it kind of looks like the, spreadsheet formula, like nested math, that kind of thing. It's kind of the structure that I'm doing because that makes sense for an AI as well, because it's a machine. So now I'm putting the little question mark, and I love this. If I can get to kind of a shell that is, because you can kind of think about this like hierarchical, right? It's got levels, but if I can define a really good shell and then put nothing in the middle, so I could say you fill in the seed, that tends to work the best because it gives limits to what it can do, but it's limitless in between those limits. But it has to have open and close. That is important. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and update. Now what it should do is say, oh, okay, let's go ahead and double check, but let's see if they're newer ones, because there's a ton of newer ones out there. And there's one other thing I might do to get it to find that. And I know those of you who will be like, oh, just do this next time. I'm going to learn all this stuff too. Okay, so Gemini 1 point for deeper reasoning. See, these are too old. All right, so what I need to do is I'm going to go back because I didn't get the answer I'm looking for. So this is an operator trick, or not a trick. This is what operators do. So as an AI operator, my job is not to have a conversation with a chatbot. My job is to operate the machine, and I didn't get the response I wanted because all it did was told me, oh yeah, they're old, blah, 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 which is fine because I started here. But now I need to dial that in a little bit because my point was they're old. I need you to update, right? So, and I'm going to put in here, update models, and then I'm going to say current date underscore time. And let's see if that gets it, because I wanted to do a system check. Now, I could tell it the answer, right? I can tell it the answer. And this is what's so important when you're working with this style of build. If I tell it the answer, I'm going to constrain its logic, guaranteed, because it didn't learn its way there. It just, I gave it a little hook there, and it got there. So it didn't really have to think its way there. And because I didn't see how it thought its way there, I don't actually know what else it got, what else was around it, right? And I need to see what else it sees, so I can say, oh, you see this piece? Oh, you see this? Oh, I never knew that was a thing. Let's connect the dots. And we all get the AI insights, right? That happens. That's why that's happening. What I'm doing is I'm trying to do that intentionally over and over again as many times as I can. Not trying, I do. But it's because of this style. All right, so we're going to restore all. That'll kind of take it back into the time. And I lose that previous response, but that's okay. It wasn't particularly useful for me. I probably am at about $1 now, I would imagine. Maybe a little less. Not bad for an hour of using AI-ish. Okay. Oh, of course we're right. Current date. Yes, it does. Now, whenever you see HILU, this is a thing that's in Nitwyt. This stands for the highest, immediate, logical, obviously useful. And then it scrubs it in 3 different perspectives. From 3 different perspectives, have to agree. That's kind of why it's like, whoops. So 2.0, I think I'm going to do 3 though. And then there is something where I can call the model. So I'm going to kind of do some of this. Let's find, I'm going to give it, because I'm thinking Gemini 3 Flash is what I'm going to do. Because that is what I use here. And I am going to build in, I think, I like the idea of the dual architecture that Klein does too, but I don't want to tackle that right now. Right now, I just want to get a connection. But I wanted to use Gemini 3 because I know that one works, because I use it and I can count. I want to be able to look at API calls and everything else. So I'm going to say Gemini 3 Flash Preview is what I'm going to use. And then so I'm going to ask it to solve, which is basically, it's going to integrate kind of like a little puzzle. Like I could say, oh, integrate this. It would also do that. But solving it makes it think more like a puzzle builder. Like, how can I solve this? What am I trying to solve? What are the different problems I'm trying to solve? And it thinks through all that stuff. Because a lot of times I will, if otherwise I'll constrain it and it goes a certain direction that sometimes it wouldn't, like I like seeing where it goes. And it just, sometimes you just say, oh my God, I could never thought about that. All right, 3 series architecture, established baseline, which it is, of course. Rip out OpenAI, install, that's perfect. That's bridge, let's see if that works. I don't think that's gonna work, but we're gonna find out because I'm curious at this point. And sometimes if I was doing this not live, because partly I'm already trying to do something I wouldn't do if I was just offline right now, which is I'm trying to make it happen under a certain time frame. And when I'm doing this by myself, I'm not under that constraint. But it would be nice if I can get this public here as we build out. And then I'm going to pull open my .env window here on another monitor and get that ready so I can pull up on AI Studio and get my key, which is what I'm using because I do use pretty much Google stuff. I know there's other things out there. It just doesn't matter to me. This stuff works no matter what. Okay, so we're going to do, this is Nitwyt demo. So I'm going to create a completely separate key from the ones that I'm currently using that you are seeing actually work right now. All right. And now that I have that key, we should be able to do our .env file. Okay, so I'm just kind of doing some things off the side, just making my little env file. Okay, so now I've done that. Let's see what we've got. I'm gonna bet money this doesn't work, but that's okay. You just kind of get used to that. And I get to figure out how next time I should ask for it better. That's kind of how I like thinking about this. It's like a game every time. It's like, oh, I didn't get all the points, but next time I'm gonna get even more. It's like you're going after boss levels. That's kind of how I think about this. All right, so we've got that. Configure the Gemini model. Credentials update the example. So dot example, which is here. So it's gonna look like this. So I'm gonna copy this out. So this is good. So I'm just copying that, and I'm gonna paste that into my actual .env, which is off screen at the moment. We'll see how long I can keep it off screen. And then let's see, structured JSON. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. We got that. Our Gemini key is there. We're gonna ignite the bridge. Okay, so now I've got .env set up, and they're gonna want it in bridge. So let me just move that file very quickly. Okay. And we're going to go into our bridge under, so it's under the Nitwyt core and developer tools. All right, so this is where I'm just kind of, it kind of shows me where it's putting it, and I kind of follow along. So we're going to put it in there. There's our bridge, and I just put it into our bridge. Okay. So now that should show up. There it is. All right, so now we can see it there without me clicking on it. Hopefully, I'm gonna collapse all this stuff so we can see what happens here. I'm gonna close this out, and we'll close that out. All right, so now, I'm gonna go ahead and do it one more time. So I'm just gonna say, Nitwyt, and I'm gonna keep this easy. I'm just gonna do a little freestyle riff in this case, because these are sometimes easier to do as well, and it's okay. Once we start on time. All right, so I'm going to ask the Nitwyt, okay, I've got the Gemini API key that's already loaded in the .env file. It's sitting in bridge. At this point, execute whatever needs to happen so that we can get this thing running and use the key. And I want to make sure that it's already connected with the .env that's there. Do any sort of testing, anything like that needs to be. Make sure we're looking, bring in alignment guardian, bring in some skeptical developers as well, who obviously know that we've already messed up. And also bring in the system architect that understands kind of where this got screwed up from the beginning, so we can figure out where all that is. Then let's figure out what the plan is to update everything, knowing that you know everything and knowing that this is public and people are viewing. So because we have the audience viewing here, especially one particular person is up close watching everything. So we got to make sure to keep the API keys, hidden and all that fun stuff, and do this in a secure way. So whatever I need to do to figure all that stuff out, let's do that. And sometimes I like prompting like this, honestly, because it's just fun. It's more fun. I will also, if I'm not able to do that, like if I'm in public somewhere, like a coffee shop or whatever, I will then take it and I will do the Nitwyt prompting version where I make it tighter and tighter and nest stuff. But that's because I'm thinking it through in the same way I did before. So I'm kind of showing that example as well. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so there's our bridge.js. Let's just see how we do, if everything's working. And so much of this stuff, especially when you're starting out, and again, a lot of you already know so much more than I do already about vibe coding. And you will see me learn all of that. And it's going to drive you nuts that I don't already know it. So I appreciate you watching me learn here. Systems architect steps in a room. Okay, I see exactly what the failure cascaded. Blind temporal space, directly physical state, NPM endpoints, expects that. But if physical Google server is running, expect to reject the model name, of course. That's exactly right. I kind of like how they're telling a story. I literally told you guys this would happen. You can't just slap a 20. This is why I like just letting AI riff and do cool stuff. Like ask Nitwyt how to figure it out. It'll come back. I told you guys this would happen. You can't slap a 2026 lore accurate model in a production SDK to play for long. I love that. The whole stream's gonna end up debugging a 404 live. Now this is great because what I'm getting the experience of these characters in this story, which is kind of why I asked for it. So there's the alignment guardian. This is a system thing that's in Nitwyt OS. That is basically remember I said there was this HILU concept of highest immediate logically obviously useful. And there's 3 different perspectives. The alignment guardian is kind of all the perspectives. Think about it like a gyroscope. Its job is to keep the operating system aligned with whatever the current values in operating systems are based upon the network that it's a part of. So it's coming through. And now we're going to remediate. So let's see how well we do. We're going to update the bridge, the SDK, and it's not going to target Gemini 1.3 Flash. So I'm going to inform. Actually, I'm going to search. What am I going to do? What do I want it to do? Yes, I want it to search. So actually, yes, I do want to do. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a thing. So I'm gonna say search true because oops, I'm gonna ask Nitwyt. We want this one. So I'm gonna say search true, and I'm gonna say Gemini 1.5. And this is just because these old models have been 6 months old already. Gemini 1.5 Flash deprecated, and then. I'm going to show you one other cool trick. Okay. So I'm going to take this. So all I did is, this is one of the more useful ways of getting AIs to get information that you don't even know what you're looking for exactly, but they will. I will give them the search link. So I'm going to search, what are the latest Gemini models, right? Just like a human would. And that's what I want it to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this part here, and I'm just taking that. I'm going to close this window. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Hailu. So now I'm asking it if this is something that is useful or not. Which of course it is. However, I need it to figure out why it is. So we're going to search true. So we're going to search, and that clearly is already going to have it thinking about searching already. So probabilistically, it should probably go out there, do its thing, and let's see what it does. Because I really want it to get out for this. They all start with this, and I'm sure there's a really easy way to get it to not do that. I will learn that stuff later. Because this is the first time I've done it with this particular build. And hooking this stuff up. And once I get it set up, I've already created other logic files that take care of this. This is like the third time I've done this one. Or hooked up something with an API, but this is the first time I'm generating the logic with a Nitwyt operating system. So now it needs to understand how it's learning that this isn't right, so it can build the logic files and capture all of that, because this entire conversation is essentially one big giant logic file. And I get to say, cool, now you know how to do API stuff, make a logic file so we know how to think about APIs. Any API, right? So all the thinking we did about Gemini, we're going to apply to all the other stuff. That's kind of the idea. All right, good catch. Of course, it's not. This isn't true either, but that's okay. Or maybe it is. Who knows? I'm going to let it try and I'm going to let it fail because I want you to show how that this is going to work anyway because it's going to fail on them. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to report the error so I can show you how to report errors because you're going to have that. But it's I think how you report the errors are important, and it might actually just work. Let's just see what we do here. It's like it's building out our bridge files. I'm probably over $1.50 right now in total cost. Not bad. Kind of digging the machine. And especially because all this logic, all the thinking that it's doing right now, I'm kind of paying for it to do all of this thinking. But then once I do that, it's like a cookie cutter snapshot, and I have that thinking forever. So it's in a way, it's like I'm taking the tokens and I'm spending the money on tokens to mint logic, because that is an asset that I can use, and I can stack these logic like Lego bricks, right? Like little Leap bricks, and they can ping off of each other and do some really cool things when you put them in a series, similar to how you might think about an end-to-end automation, but not exactly like that, but same similar structure. All right, we'll let this crank. This will definitely be the boring part of the live streams where everyone's just watching me watch the screen. And a lot of the times, this is me just going and catching, like at this point, I'm watching probably Spider Noir on Prime, which is really good, by the way. Nicolas Cage playing Spider-Man from the 40s. It's fascinating. It's cool. I liked it. Or like it. I haven't finished it yet, so no spoilers. But this is what I do. I'll watch that and then I'll, watch that for 10 to 15 minutes, then come back to the computer and see where it is. Because I'm not in front of the computer normally doing what I'm doing now. Which is why I'm going to wrap it up here. Because this is a horrible way to work. Like if you have to work 20 hours a day or 10 hours a day on a computer, we have done that. Don't get me wrong, I've done that too. But these days are coming to an end, I think. So I'm going to give it this run. If we don't make some massive progress here, that is okay. Because I'm going to go ahead and update the GitHubs instead. So that you can get those links, and then I'll wrap it up here. And then I'll keep you doing this because this is 30 days to build something pretty cool. And we got it started today, which was the whole point. All right, Flash Edition, Gemini 3 Flash. There's our dependencies, 0 fails. How to launch, simply run the following in your terminal. Okay, so let's just see. And once running, you can use the Ask Nitwyt whiteboard and the HTML portables. Let's go find out. So I'm going to take this, and I just want to make sure it does a hard refresh. So for me, I'm just going to open up a brand new incognito window because I know they're completely fresh at that point. Pasting it back in. Let's see what we got. All right. I doubt this is, I really always am like, this is not going to work because it probably isn't, but that's okay. So I'm trying to figure out what we need to do for the next steps in terms of the GitHub, and I'm not quite sure what to do for that. All right, I'm kind of cool. So that's already kind of cool. I already like that it did that. So there definitely has a connection. And so localhost 3000, I don't think that we are doing that. So I have to figure that out. Okay, honestly, this is what you do. I got to stop this because normally I'd be like, oh, I should know this already. I probably should. I don't. It doesn't matter. Freaking go to AI. Here's how you report an error. This is not an error. I know that I should know how to do this. I'll figure this out later. So I'm going to say error, right? And then I will just put in response. And then I just code this back. Let me just close these out so you can keep our focus. There we go. So I'm going to say error response. Oh well. Come back on that. Bridge offline, right? And this is only because I don't know how to do it. But what's cool about this is neither will my mom, and she's going to have to learn how to use an operate a Nitwyt as well. So the Nitwyt's got to build itself so that my mom can use it, right? And so that's why I'm kind of like, all right, I could figure this out, but I'm not going to because I need it to figure out that it should never have built this without automatically giving me a link or something where I can just go. Like, I don't know what I'm doing because it's assuming that, oh yeah, you must know terminal. And I kind of do, but also not well enough yet. And I'm going to learn it more and more, but I haven't used the terminal in like, I don't know, 4 weeks. And before that was when I was just doing that few days worth of API work I was doing just to practice it. And then I didn't use it anymore. Because I didn't have to. I could just operate through the IDE. But I'm going to set up the terminal so we can get in there. And we're going to learn. And it's going to tell me, oh, here's it's not an error. Here's what's happening. This is what we need to do. And let's find out. But I did think it was pretty cool the way it was processing that. That was kind of neat. I was like, that was a good effect. And that was not something I would have known to ask for. And that's kind of what I like about this is I'm just creating the experience that I want there. And then it tells me how that experience got coded, or it codes the experience and I try to just make sure it works. So we're now over a couple bucks in. I'm probably like at if I had to guess, I'm probably at like $2.50-ish, something like that on this particular session. But if that gets me connected into the portal, or at least this close, I'm cool with this close. I can see through the thing I need to get to. As long as I can see the next step, I'll be good. And then I do want to close out the GitHubs only because I do have a client call that's coming up in a little bit that I want to prepare for. And again, so anyone's interested in this stuff, automatedwith.tech is the free community. That's where the backstage, I kind of call it the backstage of this part. And that's where we can have other conversations. You can put in Leap files. I'll put links to stuff. I'll also put the updates for these wins there as well, so you can have those. And have a nice little spot to have everything in one place in that community there. Doing quite a bit more planning than I thought I was going to do. I thought it was going to come back and be like, oh yeah, that's because you have to operate it like this. Here's the link. Because sometimes I could do that. I could give it more direction and say, oh, here's what I'm trying to figure out. But I needed to figure out, like, all I do is I pass back error, broken. Like, you figure it out. And it comes out better. Because I didn't accidentally constrain it with what I think my human intelligence would say it to do. I'm trying to get rid of my bias out of the machine, essentially, right? Make sure it doesn't go in there. Oh, that's why they're still doing that. Interrupted during a rapid boot through a fatal flaw because the physical package weren't actually there. That makes sense. Classic day one launch error. At least they're friendly to each other. The alarm regarding the problem transparency. Actually, I think I might even make this like the community post. Like, hey, here's what the Nitwyt operating system was doing. Because this is, and keep this in mind. I haven't made it. I'm not turning it into anybody. I'm not. It makes itself whatever it needs to be, right? In terms of the roles. Okay, the secure resolution. We triggered the installation. The server, spin up there, live test. All right, let's find out. I like that. It's like, so you can test it on stream. It's always good to give your Nitwyt context. If you toggle, I will wait for it to complete and then ignite the server. Oh, maybe it's already done it. I'm going to let it do its thinking thing here, though. It might have. I have done that before, too, where I'm arguing with the AI. Like, it's not working. It's like, oh, it's just because you have no idea how to use this stuff. We thought you knew what you were doing. That is processing something, so I'm going to wait just a little bit. Oh, that's why. It's up here doing this. All right, so we should be cranking something, I think. We'll see. If this doesn't go, this is the other good thing about not doing live streams when you have to kill dead air like this. Let me get into the GitHubs. Let me show you where the GitHubs are going to be. I'm going to give you both links. One is private right now because I haven't updated and made it public, and I'm going to do that, but I got to make sure to scrub it. The other one's going to be public. Oh, there we go. We got some stuff popping. So let me get you those. Because this one is public. Okay, let's just see what we got. Make sure. I thought we were cranking. I guess not. We might be. No, we were. Something's going on. Come on. I think I can. I think I can. All right. I'm going to guess $3, maybe $4 today is what it's going to be. In the meantime, just because that's not as fun to watch, this is the Leap design pattern. So I will make sure this is in the description of the YouTube video. So you have that. In fact, I'm going to do that right now because this might as well. And then let's go ahead and edit. So you will be able to grab that. And I'll put it in this live stream video, and then I'll also link it in the community post, automatedwith.tech, if you happen to be there already. And that's that. Okay, perfect. So I'm just editing, and here we go. So I'm just going to put it under other helpful links or GitHub links. And that first one is the Leap design pattern. So you have that. That is now officially saved. So FYI, here's where we are. Meta. So I'm just editing the video that you are watching now. If you happen to be here live, there's the link. So it should be in the description right now, so you can grab it there as we go through. All right, this, I'm going to update this one next. This README file does talk about logic engineer prompts. It's a little old. I actually, wrote this months ago, back in the day. So now you'll see kind of what this is and what it's about to be. But this is definitely, we already had this AI first, always human philosophy, which is kind of everything we do at the company here at automatedwith.tech. That's the domain right there. So I'm going to get this updated, but it is there. It's incredibly useful. You can click in the Leap. If you go into the code, you can see there's a Leap file, and it's showing you the whole kind of context, rules, format, different ways that you can do Leap. So if you happen to be the organization that could use this, it's incredibly useful. There are lots of good ways to describe this. So anyway, that's that. You got the license information, the bento box, another way to sort of do. This was before I was doing. This was the early iteration of Nitwyt prompting. That's what the bento box was. Bento we use for other things. We'll talk more about that later. But in here, you can see the open and close of like, here's, kind of the first channel, and here's the second channel, and you are containing things with the open and close. And so now we call it Nitwyt prompting because it's prompting just not in the way you think. And that way it helps people realize they're not crafting a prompt. You're kind of spatially organizing a prompt, right? There's a space to it, spatial organization to how you prompt. So anyway, that's what that is. So Leap design pattern is all yours, publicly free. There will be another one called, that'll be /Nitwyt. That is not currently public, but it will. I'm just gonna give me some time to get that, because I'm gonna do that probably later today, early tomorrow morning, sometime this week. I'll update it, because that's the point, is I'm actually building the software that I plan to sell. And it's gonna be the free version on GitHub for those that wanna kind of assemble some stuff along the way as we go through. So you can play along for free, or you can just buy the thing. But the only thing you're going to buy is because you see it actually working. So that's what all this fun stuff is for. And this might just crank longer than I thought it was going to need to. So we will find out. I could probably spin up another agent if I wanted and then start it working on the GitHub stuff. That's another thing that I could do. It's just not that big a deal to me to do that, because it's easy enough to get it to do it already. There's already a logic file that has it all worked out. So it's not going to take me too long to update. And that's what I'm going to do next. And I'm going to do a quick little Ask Nitwyt. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to basically ask Nitwyt, which will be the input. And I'm going to have to do that in an IDE. So in the back end. Sorry, I'm talking to myself here. I shouldn't be doing that as I'm thinking through things. But this is the problem with staring at screens all day. All right, next time I am going to spin up multiple agents, because I'm not doing this again. The only reason I want to do it now is because I don't know how to do it. And I don't feel like doing it in front of you. Learning how to do that part. But otherwise, I might just pause this one and get on to that one. I am going to do that. So I'm going to let that one crank there. I'm going to come back to this and resume it later and offline. But it's going to work, because it almost did. So I can see kind of the interface of where it went. I've been here before. I'm this close to connecting it, and then we'll have it working. So that will be up and running by the time you come back next. In the meantime, I want to update the Leap design pattern. So we're not going to update the Nitwyt one yet, because I want that part working before I give that to you. So you have the logic for it. But the Leap design pattern, so you understand Leap and how Leap works, and you can learn about Leap, and you can take the GitHub repo and attach it into your Gemini gems or Notebook LMs, whatever you want to do with them. So I want to go ahead and do that. So this is the Leap design pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, actually let me do this. So I'm going to ask Nitwyt. I'm going to pop the pattern in there, and then this is for leap.md. Actually, I already know there's something that does this, so I'm just going to do this. And this is because I know the logic file is already back there. I don't know what it's called. It just doesn't matter. But I want to do this one. Ask Nitwyt. We're going to say repo. In this case, I'm going to say custom because it is a custom update. Because the logic file was going to create two different repos, which I'm not going to be ready for. And I'm going to use that same logic file to say, hey, we're using you, but we're going to customize how we're using you. So the input's going to change a little bit, but the process, the logic is already there. So it should still come out pretty good. Asset repo custom. All right. And then 1, 2, 3, close that out. Okay, we're going to come back in here, close that out. All right, so this is our shell. So we're asking Nitwyt for the repo custom. Here's a couple of dots I'm just putting in there around that. That should go ahead and spin up a plan. So this is a whole new chat, which is why that cost is 0, 0. We can see there it is. There's the build GitHub repos. That's the logic file that talks about the repos and how they're organized. Now, if they're not organized particularly well for whatever reason, all I do is I go back to that logic file and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. And it goes, oh, let me go reorganize myself. And then it reorganizes itself in whatever its new logic is. And then that logic is, if I like it, then it's cool. It's like a Gutenberg press. You can just do it over and over again and just start stamping out GitHub repos. Now, in this case, it'll be update, push, and handle all things GitHub for the entire Nitwyt operating system. That's a really tiny little Leap file right now, but that's going to be pretty useful. All right, so we've got the necessary updates, which is good. Leap standard, Leap design pattern is requested. Nitwyt's not ready yet. Open source repo, that's perfect. Okay, so this is the air gap stuff. Okay, this is good. We'll strictly follow the rule to avoid pushing the HTML UI, automate dominant libraries, the actual framework, do this plan. Okay. I'm going to do one other thing is just confirm it's air gapped. It did say it was air gapped in here. I'm asking it to do that again. This is something we had done before. When I did this before, there's actually a whole repo that's separate. So I want to make sure it's not pushing to that file yet. Actually, I don't want to do that. I think this is it. I do want to do this. I think this is okay. I'm just going to let that cook. Now that I'm thinking about it, because all that is exactly what we set up before. Basically, it just puts it in a separate file in my drive. So it, in theory, would not upload my entire Nitwyt operating system into the public GitHub of the leap.design pattern, because that should not happen. But let's find out. If it does, I delete it really quickly. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, we would, because we do. All right, so here's the new one. This is the current one that's in there. Now, some of this is also going to change. I'm going to change some of this stuff. But generally speaking, the basics are probably useful in terms of what this looks like. Bento box is still the old stuff, so I really got to get this out of there. This is the stuff where I need to come in and say, okay, we need to take this out, because this stuff is useful, but it's not what we want. So I'm going to make sure that stuff comes out if it stays in there. It's got the domino stuff in there. This is new, so that's good. Actually, it is keeping the bento box slide in there. This is actually not bad. I just want to change this to Nitwyt prompting. To be fair, the system doesn't know Nitwyt prompting yet. It just kind of is learning that phrase today. So I'm going to get the logic in there for that, and that'll part will fall out. So that'll be all right. And here's Casual Magic. And then the NDK, this is the development kit that's coming out soon. So not yet online, but will be. All right. Okay. Otherwise, automatedwith.tech. Everything else looks good. Okay. You can see a little call to actions in there that it's got put in there because it knows to do that, which is nice. All right, so we'll keep this going. Oh, all right. I'm going to end up running out of time. That's okay. If this doesn't, I at least want to get to GitHub, but if it doesn't, at least you can see what's going on. Those of you vibe coding know how this stuff works anyway. So I think you got what you need out of here. But I think I am going to wrap it up in the next few minutes at the bottom of the hour here. I don't want to go more than 90 minutes. This is just for my benefit, sadly. But I don't want to do more than 90 minutes in a row. So hopefully I can get this done. And then what I'm learning on these wins is I'm going to do for these, because I talk way too much when I'm on camera because I know that you're there and I don't want to ignore you. And so I go so much faster when I'm by myself, and I'm realizing I slow down to like a mile and a half. It doesn't feel like that maybe to you sometimes because it might feel like I'm jumping ahead, but for me it feels really painfully slow. So I'm going to redesign the next win, how much I'm doing on the live so I can get it. Because I want to kind of try to get in and out within an hour for everybody's sake. At least on the live streams. And then we'll have lots of other content that'll be chopped out and put out for people to see what's going on here, especially as you see the pattern that's coming. Okay, so we got that, recorded over tools. We added that section I saw, that was fine. All right, stage of commit all the changes. And evidently already there. Now let's go see if we did that. So let's see if it actually did. Yep, looks like it. So there's all their new files. There's a recipe card template. Oh, good. So there you go. Perfect. Oh, this is so good. All right, this stuff is going to make a lot of sense coming up. So there's Leap file logics. So you can kind of go through there. Bento box we keep in there kind of a day. This is going to be flipped out in the Nitwyt prompting, so that'll be updated. There's the alignment guardian. So those of you who are like, what's alignment guardian? There it is. There's Hailu cubed. There's the flows, the connection coming through. This is perfect, perfect, perfect. Good job, Nitwyt. Yeah, this is really good. All right, there's our README file. So we can have that. By the way, if you want to, there's a programming language I've never heard of because of this guy that I saw as a documentary called Clojure, C-L-O-J-U-R-E. And he did a talk in this documentary. I was watching it, and he did this talk about Simple Made Easy. That was back when he was creating this programming language, and there was so many overlaps with kind of Leap and what I do with Leap, and what he was doing with Clojure, and it was super cool. So I took that and was like, this is like, are there overlaps? And it was like, yeah, it's the same philosophy. And I was like, this is so freaking cool because this is what we're doing. We're making complexity. We're choosing complexity so often, and we can choose. This was me saying I want to do the slippery thread, sled the needle path of simplicity, like make it as easy as possible. So anyway, watch that guy or learn about him. He's fascinating. And it was really cool. And Clojure, I mean, that's a fascinating programming language. I wish more people used it. It's kind of neat. Very Leap-like, very, very easy to read. All right, so this isn't going to work. This is going to 404. That's okay. I will not worry about that for now because that's going to come on. And I don't expect 1 million people are going to see this today. So this will be in there. This is our YouTube. It looks like it's going where it needs to go. Perfect. So that's in there. So that thought that through, and then automatedwith.tech. This is the main site. So anybody wants to join the community can come in there. Again, there's a little login button that'll be up the right-hand side as we go through, and that'll get you in there. And then we've got, let's see, the meeting action extractor. There we go. So there's another little Leap file. So this is great. Here's the emotional dissolve. All right, perfect. This should really help you out. Here's a recipe cards to pull out. This is exactly right. I love this. All right, perfect. So I didn't get completely confirmed. I'm going to close this out now. I didn't get completely confirmed on the AI bit that connected. Oops, let me pull this back. I'm going to do, get rid of these. Close, close, close. Pull in Klein. That's what I want. We're going to close this guy out. Let's come in here. I'm just going to resume this task and see how much longer I can do, because I'll figure this out. One time this sat here for a while and I was like, it's broken, and it was like, no, I've been working and you don't know that I'm working right now, and I had to learn some stuff. So this might be something on here that I got to work out, because this is the first time I've used this particular system to do the API stuff. Everything else I've done APIs, I've used other IDEs in, and they all got set up in their ways. This is the first time I've done it with VS Code, which I'm also just realizing. So VS Code is setting itself up as it's going through. And while this is not going to happen here, I'm not going to be able to show all of that. I am very much looking forward to the test, because I think it's going to be pretty cool. So, all right, I'm going to just pop me back online and then finish this out. So there you go. So that's hopefully you learned at least something kind of useful when it comes to this stuff. The Nitwyt prompting techniques, you're going to see lots of those. Remember, I'm not trying to teach everybody here. So it's not, if you didn't hopefully just learning by observing something new and then seeing a pattern of what all these different new things are starting to create, and then how fast something starts to happen that you go, oh, it kind of seems like he's got a long way to go. And then all of a sudden it starts leaping, and you'll see it kind of leap ahead as it grows itself, which I know sounds kind of weird, but remember, we're doing this by design. This is engineered as an experience that we're working with AI on. So without further ado, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for being here for win number 1 of 30 wins in 30 days. I already got mine because I got the new GitHub updated, and that's at least a win. And I made partial win, which I'm going to give myself for on the other API, getting that connected. And the other thing I was trying to do is get the other GitHub. So I was just trying to push a lot of wins, but I definitely got one. So I'm happy. And I've got 30 more. I got 30 wins in 30 days. So there's my first one. At this point, I will go ahead and end this here, and stay tuned for the next videos. I'll pop out the next video tomorrow. We'll do a drop that'll introduce the concept of what we're doing, and then in the afternoon build, or whatever the build's going to be. Their time's probably going to bounce around a little bit, but I would do my best to structure this as much as we can. This is the first one I've done. So this is where I get all of the logic for it as well, going through it and recording the process. Then I'll feed that into Nitwyt and say, how do we do the next challenge better? So again, as you have suggestions or questions, things that are vulnerable that we didn't think about would be awesome. Just let me know. We can kind of put those in the comments, or things where you're like, hey, can it do this? Or, can we swing for this type of fence? Can we make it even better in this way? That would be great too. If there's places that we just missed that are opportunities that we should be taking instead of vulnerabilities, let's point those out. And then that input will go into Nitwyt, and it will also improve itself based upon your feedback. And we've got 30 days of this. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks again for being here, and we will see you on the next live stream. Take care.